Elijah saw fire fall from heaven and then asked God to let him die. That is where this story begins to feel painfully human. Not after failure, not after defeat, but right after one of the greatest victories in the Bible. On Mount Carmel, Elijah stood before a nation that had forgotten the Lord. The altar was broken. The people were watching. The prophets of Baal had cried out and received nothing. Then Elijah prayed, and heaven answered. Fire fell from the sky. The altar was consumed. The stones, the wood, the dust, the water, everything was taken by the fire of God. The people fell on their faces and cried, "The Lord, He is God." From the outside, it looked like the greatest moment of Elijah's life. But some victories are loud on the outside and crushing on the inside. Some people survive the battle, but their soul cannot survive the weight of what it took to stand. And then, right after the fire, the message came from Jezebel. By this time tomorrow, your life will be taken. One sentence, one threat, and the prophet who had faced fire from heaven ran for his life. He left the mountain. He left the crowd. He left the sound of victory behind him. And he ran into the wilderness. But Elijah was not only running from Jezebel. Every step into the desert was distance from the man everyone thought he still was. He walked until the wilderness became more than a place. It became the sound of everything inside him shutting down. And under a lonely tree, with no crowd, no altar, no fire, and no one calling him strong, Elijah finally said what his soul had been carrying in silence. "I have had enough, Lord. Take my life." In that moment, it was not the prophet of Carmel speaking. It was a man who had reached the end of himself. A man tired of carrying the calling, tired of standing alone, tired of winning in public while bleeding in private. And here is the part of the story that most people rush past. God did not start with a rebuke. He did not ask Elijah why he was weak. He did not demand courage. He did not tell him to get over it. God let him sleep. While Elijah slept on the ground, like a man with no strength left even to pray, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." Beside him, there was bread and water. No thunder, no fire, no crowd. Just food. Because sometimes God does not begin by explaining your pain. He begins by restoring your strength. Elijah ate, drank, and lay down again. The angel came a second time, touched him again, and said, "Get up and eat, because the journey is too much for you." Do not miss this. God knew Elijah still had a road ahead. But before God sent him back to the road, he cared for the body that had collapsed in the dust. Strengthened by that food, Elijah walked 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. And there, he entered a cave. But maybe that cave was more than a place. Maybe it was the shape of his soul. Dark, closed, silent, hidden. Then God asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah answered like someone who could no longer separate pain from truth. "I have been faithful. They tore down your altars. They killed your prophets. I am the only one left. And now they want my life too." Elijah was not only afraid to die, he felt alone. His pain had made his world smaller than God's truth. So God told him to go out
and stand on the mountain before the Lord. Then came a violent wind, strong enough to tear through the mountains and shatter the rocks. But God was not in the wind. After the wind, the earth began to shake. Stones split. The mountain trembled. But God was not in the earthquake. Then came the fire. Intense, terrifying, supernatural. But God was not in the fire. And when every loud thing finally passed, there came a gentle whisper. That was the moment Elijah covered his face. That was the moment the broken man realized God had never left the cave.
God did not come to crush Elijah with power. He came to meet him in the silence. Because not every encounter with God happens in the spectacle. Sometimes God speaks softly when your soul cannot handle any more noise. And maybe this is the part of the story that sounds like you. Maybe everyone thinks you can handle everything. Maybe you have held the family, the job, the faith, the pressure, the people, while inside you could barely breathe. Maybe no one sees the battle you fight when the door is closed. But God sees you in the cave. He sees the tears you hide. He sees the weight you never explain. And he sees what your exhaustion cannot see yet. Elijah thought he was the only one left, but God had already preserved 7,000 who had not bowed to Baal. Elijah could only see the cave, but God could see the remnant. So your loneliness may be telling you a story that God has not finished writing. You are not as alone as you think. When the strong break down, God does not discard them. He lets them rest. He feeds them. He calls them by name. He speaks in the silence. And in his time, he lifts them again. If this story found you tired from being tired, write in the comments, God still sees me. And share this with someone who looks strong, but maybe breaking in silence.